is shaking, y'all. Episode 33, Golden Mike Live. Melanie Klein is here with us. She's going to talk about body image and how that, not only how body image is a big part of society, but how that affects our identity and how our identity affects a whole bunch of other things. I cannot wait to jump into this and talk to you about it. Melanie is the author of Yoga Rising and the author of another book, Yoga Body Image. I messed up in our pre-show interview, and I wanted to make sure that both of those books,
boom,
yes, boom. Now, she mailed me the book and it didn't get here in time, so just in case, I drew a cover of the book.
Love that. Love the creativity. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So for those of you who haven't met me yet, my name is Mark Cordone, positive psychology coach. Don't worry about the empirical data. Don't worry about all the other stuff except for two things. Are you feeling good? And are you functioning in full purpose and fulfillment today? So Melanie, I got to ask you, Klein, are you feeling good and functioning in full purpose today?
Absolutely. I am feeling amazing in my body, about my body, and I am functioning to full purpose. I've had clients. I did a guy on Facebook Live. I'm here with you. I feel like I'm totally in flow and it's fantastic.
Yes, and dad bods are in.
And dad bods are in, even though mom bods aren't. And we were talking
mom
about
bods are totally in. Mom bods are totally in. Let's talk about that in a little bit. Let's talk about that the reason why that sort of schism exists between the two. For those of you watching, and there are a lot of you watching right now, if you're feeling good and you're living in full purpose, can you give Melanie and I simply a few hearts? Is it too much to ask for some hearts on this Friday, this episode 33? Let me see how you make your heart beat. Melanie's like, I need to get the hell out.
Natalie, Kristen,
yes!
Come on. Yes.
Do it. Natalie is jumping on now. Kristen, it is good to see you hanging out in your office. Where are you guys? Are you over in LA too? Molly, I'm here. Love my body. Can't wait to hear Melanie. Rose and all. Celebrate that shit, girl. Celebrate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if you're feeling it today, give us those hearts. The weekend is coming. And if you felt like you've been working and it doesn't feel like a weekend, it's just every single day is a perfect day, give us those hearts. Now, also in positive psychology, it's not just about the shits and giggles and the unicorns and Taco Tuesdays. If you've had one of those weeks and you're like, I cannot wait for this week to end, Cordone, I'm not going to watch you right now because I'm in a bad mood. I don't know what my purpose is right now. You know what? It is okay to have those days, y'all. Give us a thumbs up. You're pushing through it. Give us a thumbs up. That's cool too. Finally, whether you had an up, whether you had a down, whether you're all around, if you're feeling optimistic about your future, about tomorrow, if you're feeling great about where you're heading, that's right, like that big old car in the background. Give us a big old wow face. Melanie, can you yes? The double author of 2 books just gave us a wow face.
I love that. You gotta have fun. You have to have levity. That is why I freaking love you, Mark. I love that you bring the levity and the lightness, which can otherwise be really sometimes intense stuff.
Well, it is intense stuff, but why can't we laugh about it and have fun throughout the whole process, right?
I'm getting look at the whole.
I know you are. I like to say that we're having fun, seriously.
Yes.
You know, we got Kirsten coming in from Knoxville, Tennessee. It's good to see you in Knoxville. We see you. Molly McCarthy's got the Skittles going on. Skittles and Taco Tuesday. Natalie, hell yeah. I have no idea. Oh, Star Eyes face. I don't know what Star Eyes face is, but I'm starstruck by Melanie too. I've only been talking to her for a couple minutes and I'm like totally starstruck by this woman. So with that said, why don't we just jump right into this, Melanie. Melanie, you're a sociologist. So why don't you tell us, what is your story?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I
nice big open-ended question, right?
Love it. No, it's great. So I am, I wear a few hats, and I'm going to talk about those, but actually point out how they're connected and how that was really an extension of sort of my own life's journey. So I'm a professor of sociology and women's studies. My areas of interest have been media representation, media literacy, contemporary body image politics, and power and privilege, intersectional feminism, just for a few small words, right? And also, and an empowerment coach, does a lot, of work around authenticity, coming into our fullest, most brilliant selves by working out our insecurities, our issues around our value, which in many cases are related to our relationship with our body and ourself. And those are old stories that we've taken in from our parents, our peers, and definitely our culture at large, given that we are in such a heavily mediated society where, at this point, you're bumping into people on the sidewalk because truly people are taking in so much screen time that their framework of reality is being constructed by corporations who have a lot to sell us for the insecurities that have been created, right? And even though I did not grow up in the world of Facebook or social media, I certainly was plagued with my own self-doubts. And from the time I was definitely about 9 or 10 years old, which is statistically the time that self-esteem drops exponentially for girls, really felt a tremendous amount of pressure around what I looked like, my body, my size, my height, as my body was developing and changing. The women in my life, really put a lot of emphasis on being small, being thin, having a very traditional sort of definition of femininity, which is about daintiness and all of these things that I was not. I think I was taller than my mom by the time I was in 5th grade. Okay. And, and so that was a big component, and also starting to internalize a lot of the messages, but not only what I was supposed to look like, but other things around my self-worth, around my intelligence, my capability. I can definitely say from that period well into my teen years, I did not anticipate that I had the wherewithal within myself to be more than somebody's wife and perhaps a volunteer at an art museum, that was what I was going to do. And I needed to find someone who would take care of me. I was absolutely terrified of becoming an adult. I was terrified because I did not think I had the intelligence, the sort of, follow through, the gumption to stand on my own, to be autonomous, to be independent, and to feel good about that. So I was plagued by very, very, very deep insecurity, which also culminated in an incredibly abusive relationship from the time I was 14 on and off till I was about 23. And when I walked into my first sociology of women's class, that changed. That shit changed. I was like, whoa. And the reason it did is because I was given answers to things I'd always wondered about, but things that I felt were my own fault. I carried a lot of shame, guilt, and blame. And I felt that the things that I was experiencing were a reflection of my own lack. And when I began to understand systems and structures, and that this was not something that I was feeling uniquely as a girl or a woman, but that this was actually a statistical norm, I felt really liberated by that information, incredibly liberated by that information. And it allowed me to feel that there were new possibilities open for me. And that was the beginning, and there's more. So I'll leave some for you, but that was the beginning. That was the beginning. And that's all I wanted to do with my life. I was like, this is what I want to constantly be talking about, thinking about, doing. And I'm really lucky that is what I've been talking about, thinking about, and doing for the last 24 years as a result.
So literally going into that class, it was like an aha moment for you. It happened.
Totally.
Now, in terms of walking into a class like this, like I always dream that I can walk into a classroom and like there are illusions or there are things that I'm feeling in terms of sort of my own sort of dissonance with reality, right? That I feel about myself. And I look forward sometimes in terms of my search to find something in which the aha moment is that clear and that definite that I could say that it provided me with some answers. So what were some of the answers that you got out of that intro course. Was an intro course? That's a pretty hardcore course for a sociology course. Like that can't be an intro course. That's like got to be 300, 200 level.
Yeah, it was not intro.
Okay.
But it was my intro. That was the one
Yep.
that I felt called. I will tell you, I had been living in Hawaii at the time. I had dropped out of college, moved to San Diego, to a beach town, moved to Hawaii. And listen, a lot of that was truly because I wanted to escape. I felt that maybe life could be easier this way. Could I just kind of chill? Could I wait on tables the rest of my life? I was there and, had that experience, and I realized no. And I started to get the call. This is not what you're meant to do. This is not how you're meant to live. And I was like, oh, dang, really? Okay. So I flew home to LA, check this out, on the morning of the 1994 Northridge earthquake. Okay. Ooh. So I was living in Maui. One of my roommates was a bartender in Lahaina, and he had come home, 2 or 3 in the morning. I had to get up at 4 to get to the airport. And so the television was on, and there were all of these, scenes of fires and collapsed buildings, and it said Northridge. I went, oh my God, that's where I'm flying back to. What is happening? And literally my entire world was sort of just disintegrating all around me. But I had given up my job in Maui. I had given up my place. I said, okay, I'm going in. I'm going in. And I came home, and, other series of, as it usually happens, challenging things unfolded. And then about 6 months after I came back to LA, I said, okay, I'm going back to school. Had one of the people I was working with at Tony Roma's rib joint in Encino, had him get me a printed catalog of the local community college. And I was flipping. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just know I'm supposed to go back to some sort of education. Sociology. What the heck is that? I'd never heard of that in my life. I loved psych, okay? Loved all of those things. Growing up in Germany, my sort of desire to people watch and understand other cultures was there. So I went, well, if I like psych, this has got to be about people, probably about society. Fantastic. Oh, social of women. Well, I'm a woman. Okay, let's go. And oh my goodness, I was gifted with the most amazing, fierce mentor I could have ever hoped to have land in my life. She was in her 60s at the time. She used to wear this big medallion that said, make war, war is bad for children and other living things, or something like this huge medallion. And she would lecture and put her leg on this chair, and she'd kind of stand like this. And I was like, oh my God, I've been waiting for this my whole life. And I just was totally taken by her. And I can't even tell you specifically what the lessons were, but it was that I wrote about this in Ms. Magazine about 5 years ago. I called it, click, it's not you, it's patriarchy. That's the name of the article. That was my click moment, my aha moment. I went, oh, it's not me. Yep. Oh, it's not my own shortcoming. I'm not the problem. I actually, as a woman, I live in this system in which, we're socialized differently. We are objectified. We really, we're told we're not good at math. And you had Marla on a few weeks ago. She's freaking brilliant at math, but she didn't figure it out until her late 20s. Okay. And that we are butting up against these external constraints. But the most insidious thing is that we come to believe them. Yep. That this becomes our own internalized oppression. And so the lens through which we view the world and ourselves is through that. And that was the key moment that I realized that was my big lesson. It's not me. This is something larger. And as a result, I have the ability to change things up. And that was the liberating moment. And actually one more thing, and that she saw something in me.
Oh, that's a big deal. That's a big deal when I don't know what to call it, but when someone sees either your potential or someone just sees you, and you start separating yourself from the constructs that you were believing the whole time, right? So let's not play. Can we agree to not play the oppression Olympics, which sometimes happens in these cases?
Oh, yes.
I think what's resonating with me, it's giving me a little bit of goosebumpies and collie wobbles right now. Is I remember picking up a Time magazine article, and it said on the cover, those Asian American whiz kids, and I was like, the fuck is this? I didn't say it because I was a nice Catholic boy. I didn't curse back then, but like
that's called a benevolent stereotype, by the way.
right? But and so much of what I bought into was like, oh, this is great. I guess I'm good at math. I guess I'm good at this. I guess I'm good at that. But it also implied that I suck at other things, like hanging out with people. And I was also pitted against other races. Like, look, other races, shouldn't you be more like Asian Americans?
The model minority.
Yep, I came to hate that stuff. And so that's where I went from being an angry person to being like, can I do this work and look at the positive side of things and not burn out? So that's actually where I came from. We got some people in here that want to communicate with you. We got Jorge, who's here every day. Jorge, you are on a big time streak, son. Every day here, peace and love. Mark, I hate the fact, Jorge, that you never say hi to the guests. You always invite me to Puerto Rico. You invite no one else. You're totally giving them shade. Invite everybody, for God's sake, man.
We're just going to come. We're just going to come.
Yeah, we are going to crash, son. Bonnie, oh my God, old stories from other people and media. So true. Jorge's giving a shout out to his coach, Coach Faber. I'm hoping Coach Faber totally totally inspired you. He was a coach. He was a speaker that came in a couple weeks ago. Amazing, amazing, amazing guy. So we just had an aha moment. We had this aha moment about constructs and realities in the sociology class. And oftentimes it's that, right? It's like, I don't remember what she actually said. I know how I felt, and I felt freedom, liberation, happiness, right? And so talk to us now. Talk to us now about moving to being an empowerment coach or moving to being an author, talking about body image. Where did that stem from now?
Oh my God, there's a lot of steps in between. I'm not going to go through them all, but I'm going to.
We need to be off at 12 o'clock, so I'm trying. Yes, right.
Well, we can maybe linger a little longer, but for sure, I want to give the highlights. So one thing, that Bonnie had said, it was about these old stories. You were also talking about, your own parameters that were imposed on you, and I called it, was in particular called a benevolent stereotype. And it's really that sort of limitation of our knowledge, the limitation of our identity, the limitation of what we see our role and possibilities, and which you had said, I love this, Mark, and which limits all the other things. Okay. And so we kind of get put into this box, and not only do we get placed in that box from the external world, but then we continue to recreate it because we then see ourselves through that lens, and we come to kind of strengthen those beliefs and those identities. And so for me, yes, exactly.
Is that called reification?
Well, yes, but it's also the creation and recreation of reality as well, gotcha. Right? How we create and recreate our reality every day. Sociologists talk about how, culture is a fluid and dynamic thing. We socially construct it, and then we reconstruct it through our everyday interactions and expectations.
Totally nerding out. This is so awesome.
I know, right? Yeah. I love this. And so yeah, it was liberation, it was empowerment, it was the letting go of shame and blame and guilt that I had carried. And I was very aware, like I said earlier, this is what I want to do. I want to be in the mentor-mentee role always. I want to keep receiving, and I know it is my job. I am compelled to continue to give this to others. So I, continue to have my own mentors and coaches, and I mentor and coach and teach. So there's a constant flow and exchange of the energy in all directions. And at the bottom line is whether I'm teaching, whether I'm coaching, whether I'm doing activism work in other spaces, it all boils down to raising consciousness so that we can free ourselves and dissolve those constraints, and we can come into our authentic power. I'm sure that when my sociology students sign up, that's not what they realize that they're getting, but very soon they are aware that is actually what they're getting, and they keep coming back because it's so much deeper than understanding structures and constraints and socialization. What's actually happening is I am trying to get them to be fully present in their lives. I'm getting them to be fully accountable, to make conscious choices, to really remove the obscurations that exist and come into themselves completely so that they can then walk in the world that way. Now, my coaching clients, they do know that's what they're signing up for, right?
Right, right.
But no matter how I'm operating, what hat I'm wearing, that is the central core of who I am in my work. And sometimes in the past, there would be this feeling of like, oh, damn, again, it would have been easier just waiting on tables in Maui. But it was very abundantly clear that there was no other choice. And when I was messing around for that 6 months after I came back from Maui, I know Marla had shared her roll down the canyon, which she didn't say that. Here's the thing. I was driving behind her. We were leaving a house where we had gone in the jacuzzi, and then we're like, let's just go home. I was driving behind her, and she went over, and because there were turns in the highway, I didn't see it happen, and I drove home.
Yowzers.
So that happened with her. But in my own case, I was messing around. I had gotten the call internally to come back to LA. I come back, and then other things are distracting me and happening. And I decided to go to a Dead show in Vegas. Like, let's go. Let's roll out. Let's go see the Dead. Okay. And check this out. Marla was supposed to go with me. And she's like, I'm not going to go to this one. I was like, are you serious? I was like, man, everybody's flaking. We were supposed to have like 7 people. Everybody's dropping out. So my girlfriend and I, who was about as depressed as I was at the time, I was like, come on, we got to go. It's so much fun. There's going to be, balloons and brownies, and it's going to be fantastic.
I was waiting for the reference.
And so we go, and it was in the middle of the summertime, really hot. And so, we're in our early 20s, and, our cars were not the greatest. Yeah. I was thinking, hey, let's avoid overheating in the desert. Let's leave at 11 at night. Brilliant.
Oh my gosh.
So we do. And we're driving on the 10 freeway, and we hear this loud noise, and didn't know what it was. I was like, whoa, did my engine blow, tire pop? Oh no, we're still driving. We keep going. So we keep driving. We get to finally, when the sun's coming up, we're some podunk nowhere in the desert, somewhere between Baker and Vegas or something. And there's a bullet hole. There's a bullet hole in the window behind my head. There's a bullet hole. And she says, oh my God, there's a hole in your window. And then I look, and there's a hole in the headrest behind her. The bullet had gone in behind me and at an angle where it went into the headrest, exploded. There was a little tiny sliver in the headrest here, and there was a shard of the bullet on her shoulder.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I've written a screenplay on this. Haven't sold it yet.
I was about to say, have you gotten all your licenses and everything in order with this story before you put it out?
Well, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but let's put it this way. It's a cross between Thelma and Louise and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh my gosh. My gosh. Okay.
This is just the beginning, and then more things happen. This is like a 3-day odyssey that unfolds. And at the end of it, I was sitting there with my friend Jay, who picked me up from the Greyhound station in downtown LA. And I went, okay, I'm going back to school. I'm enrolling. That's when I enrolled in that sociology of women's class. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I know I'm not doing what it's supposed to be. And from that, it was this reminder, like, listen, you're messing around, and if you're wasting, you're out, taking you out. And I go, okay, heard you loud and clear. And that's when I landed in that class. And that is what really set the ball rolling. And after, I sort of discovered the sociological imagination and feminist consciousness, 2 years later, I landed in my first yoga class. And that's when it all came together. Because as I write actually in the first book, Yoga and Body Image, I say feminism freed my mind, yoga liberated my body or freed my body. I needed to have both. It could not just be an intellectual exercise. It could not be an intellectual, heady knowing, because it was like, okay, great. So I know there are these constraints, and I know that I am not completely valuing myself. I definitely don't feel the sense of self-love. I know I'm supposed to, but how do I practice that? So yoga lands in my life, and it's like now I could apply and practice everything I come to know and integrate it completely. And that's really the approach that I have with my own clients. Is this is about whole body integration, whole person integration. This is about not just making this an intellectual exercise, which, listen, I love those things, but it's about how do we pull this into our body? How do we pull this into our emotional body, our psychic body, our intellectual body, our physical body? And then it's not about knowing it, it's about being it. It's about flowing with it. And so that was the game changer. When those two things came together, 1994, 1996. So, we've been rocking and rolling now for 24 years. And this is all, like I said, I like to do and talk about. And thank God that's what I get to do. That is what I do all day.
It's awesome that you are talking about it. What is a freaking weird turn of events. I mean, it sounded like at first like one of those Zach Galifianakis films where they're going to Vegas, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do? And then it kind of turns into something really, really, really powerful. Let me ask you this before we go and talk more about the body image piece. So you obviously have a very strong academic background and presence with that you fully are embracing. And then I also hear you talking about some of the softer things, like, well, I was being called. I straight up was being called. How is the way that you're putting this all together part of that full person integration? And when you said that you're a person who wears a lot of hats. When you're wearing a particular hat, let's say in academia, are there folks who are like, oh yeah, that's an academic who's a little bit woo? Does that make any sense?
It does.
Okay.
I will definitely say that. Well, let me go back a little bit and then I'll answer the question as well. So from the time I was really small, I felt things, as many of us who do this do. I remember at the time I was living in Germany. I lived there till I was 6. And then when I moved here, I would fly back and forth 3 months out of the year as an unaccompanied minor. So at the age of 8, I started flying there alone, and I would spend 3 months out of the year with my family there. So that's where that sociological sort of spark came from, living in different cultures, speaking different languages, etc. And so at the time I was living in Germany, about 5 years old. And I remember having this thought, what is if there was nothing? And I went, wait, can there be nothing? If there was nothing, would that be a blank white space? Is nothing space? And I would have these conversations. And I actually remember almost having an out-of-body experience where I would be looking down at myself from a different plane and just knowing that there was so much more that existed that we could touch. And I would say I spent most of my childhood in that realm, very much a creative, poetry, art. My mother is an artist. My grandmother was an artist. I mean, really, there's a lot of creation energy all around me. Did an art portfolio I went to a private school, did my scholars portfolio for college credits, and then realized, I don't want to go into advertising. That was kind of the option. I'm like, I don't, a lot of my friends did, and that's great, and they're brilliant, and they really come up with some clever things, but that's not what I wanted to do. And then I found this. And so I had always sort of had a foot in both worlds. And to me, they were both necessary. I was never more prone to one area than the other. I was never more prone to just the academic linear, or just more prone to the creative flow. I always understood that they were equal parts of me. And actually, one of the most exciting things for me in doing my coaching work is I'm not required to pick. I don't have to deny one part of my experience or expertise for another. I can bring them together. And even though that was a little, less, traditional or expected in academia, I did integrate that, but not in a way that made me kooky or that made me seem like I didn't have credibility. I did it in a very sort of adept, skilled way that where people could feel it, but I used language that would be more appropriate for that setting. and really tempered it. And so that was always sort of my approach. I will say that when I started talking about doing research on yoga during grad school, some of my mentors couldn't quite understand how that came into play. I went forward anyway. When I made the choice to, kind of change up my academic path, and they're like, that's really, you're not going to have the kind of security. I was like, no, I'm going to write books. And can I tell you, when I said it, I had no idea how that would happen. I don't even know why I said it. I'm like, what am I saying? But I just knew. I kept going. And at this point, yeah, I have these 2 books, but I also have contributions in others. And I have a 3rd book that I edited with Dr. Chelsea Jackson and Dr. Beth Barilla, which is a much more academically minded thing that is about embodied social justice from an intersectional feminist perspective. So all those things that I had no clue how it was going to happen did. And it required both things simultaneously, even when the yoga and wellness community thought it was weird that I was bringing in conversations about intersectional feminists and consciousness raising, even when academia was like, what the hell, mindfulness and yoga? And to be honest, now, both of those realms embrace the other one.
Absolutely. Well, what I love about the way that you really talked multiple times about the co-construction of even your career, right? Just the example of the co-construction of your career was my observation, just speaking in I, of you seeing certain things as completely limiting. Like if you stay in an academic realm, that's a completely limiting factor. But also at the same time, as you've integrated these other things, you know those realms so well that you can play along those sort of outskirts and kind of not be so far out of the fence that people aren't listening, right? But you're still within it, that you can kind of push from within. You can give a nice little organizational press. So I'm completely loving that, because it's really like with positive psychology, I feel like it's very divisive to some ways of thinking, right? Especially when you're talking about the media. A lot of things in the media are not meant to make you happy. Maybe a dopamine rush, but not true happiness.
Correct.
So, but that's my golden mic, not yours. It's your time to talk about the golden mic.
But I love your golden mic. I love it.
I wish more people would, but you know what? It's my show. You can't cancel it. I produce it. Let's talk about this idea of positive body image and body acceptance. And really going into the nuts and bolts of your take on that, and what you've seen with either clients or your own personal narrative on that.
Yeah, sure. Well, one thing is, a lot of times what I see, that body image has become a buzzword. Body acceptance has become a buzzword. Body positivity is a buzzword. And of course, corporations have picked up on it to sell us now different things. For me, one thing that's very clear, there is no specific formula. There's no specific path. There's no specific product that can grant that. The only way to access, a really positive, healthy, functional body image, which I'll define more in a moment, is to do the work yourself. And when I work with private clients, when I teach, when I write, the reason I have a collection of stories is because I acknowledge there is not just one path. Now, yoga and mindfulness can be a wonderful tool. It can be a wonderful support, but the, sort of the details in that equation are very personal. I don't work with people the same way. I don't expect that I should or would. I don't expect people to have the same details. So all of that is really boils down to these formulas that are given are really, just skimming the surface. There has to be more. It has to be the work. There's no way around it. It's not a pill you can take. And that when I hear people talking about body image in this new sort of buzzword way, it oftentimes is implied that only certain people have a body image, first of all, which is not true. Every single person has a body image. And it was actually a psychologist, Dr. Schilder, in the 1930s, who coined the term, saying body image is simply our own perspective of ourselves. So when we look in the mirror, we are not actually seeing the reality of what's being reflected back for the most part. As Bonnie said earlier about the old stories, we are seeing, okay, if you're imagining like the pixels coming in, we're seeing them kind of be put together through the lens of all the things that have happened to us, all the media that we've consumed, all of the stories that we've lived and that we have, you know, really sort of glommed onto. That is our body image. And for some people, it can be very distorted. For some people, it can be more clear. And when it's more clear, you can have greater acceptance because you're living in the truth. When it is obscured or dysfunctional or distorted, you're not in the truth. You are existing in a reality that's been constructed outside of you. And so the whole goal of body acceptance is not to find a pill or a diet or a new workout regimen, or I don't know, what do people do now? The paleo, the ketosis, I don't know. There's all these things, right? That are happening. And listen, whatever, to each their own. People can do their own thing. But what I try to point out is you don't need more things, extraneous things. That we all have the capability and capacity to feel good right now. It requires an internal shift that when we can step outside the stories, when we can view them, okay, and see them and acknowledge them, not make them bad or wrong, but just they're there, we can go into feeling good now, right now.
Is that what you're meaning by truth?
Yeah, when you come into the truth of this moment and accept the truth of this moment, we have the ability to shirk off all of the sort of heaviness in terms of the expectations and pressure. So Livy, let me give you an example. I had been really going through my own, you know, body image journey for a long time, had been, you know, cruising, feeling good, which doesn't mean every day is great, but it just means that I don't allow what I look like or what I think I look like on any given day to bring me down. It doesn't diminish my joy. It doesn't diminish my ability to show up, right? And so I had gotten to this place, got pregnant, had my son, and holy crap, that threw a whole new sort of variable into play. And, you know, I had a very difficult birth, had a C-section, identity issues are already coming up. Now, all of a sudden, I'm a mom. I've been this independent woman for years. Now I have this person. Stuff is happening. And I remember I went to push the stroller one day, and I had this floppy sun hat, you know, kind of had this outfit thrown together, probably pee on it because he used to spray me, change his diaper. And my pants were kind of high waters because, you know, my uterus was still healing. It was still very much bloated. So the material that would normally go to my ankles now was going up to my belly button. So I'm wearing floods, you know, but I'm wearing tennis shoes because I'm walking. And I remember I looked in the mirror, I was like, oh, damn. Damn, that's who I am right now. And I went, and that's cool. That's cool. That's I was like, embrace that. That is who I am right now. I'm a woman who just had a C-section. I'm a woman who just had a kid. I'm a woman who's freaking wrestling a damn breast pump every day and having this little boy pee on me and not even changing anymore because it happens too much, just going out and doing the thing. And I was like, that's great. That's fine. Where normally years earlier when I was having, you know, bad body image days, I honestly just would not show up. And when I say not show up, I'm saying not show up for work. Okay. I would not go to class. I wouldn't want to go outside. I would want to be literally invisible. So this is where if we're having a negative body image, we make ourselves small, we make ourselves invisible. And if there are things that we are looking to manifest and put in the world, if we don't even show up, it doesn't happen. And so if we can come into a place of acceptance and go, hey, this is the truth of me right now. This is my lived meat suit. This is what's happening, okay? And that's fine. I am still joyful. I'm still competent. I'm still capable. I am not going to let this exterior determine my inner landscape. I love that you put that meat suit. We got to put dad bod up there too. We got to come back to that. Then that is freedom. That is freedom. That is liberation. That's when we are now determining, right, our sort of path, and we're not going to be ripped off because we think that we're not living up to this one-dimensional expectation that gets churned out over and over and over again through the media mega machine and all of the other, glossy Instagram filtered images that we're seeing, that we're like, no, that's there, but I'm good. I'm centered.
Sure. As I see you talking about freedom, and then sort of talking about earlier on in your sort of your identity development, talking about the ideas of shame and guilt, and I totally see those things going away right now, as you were talking about, like, just kind of looking at your meat suit being like, yeah, that's what's going on today. Got a little pee on me. I want to know what's going on with the group. Kristen is saying, amen, sister. Pop, pop, pop. Give you 3 high fives in a row.
I love Kristen. She's been part of the yoga and body image community for a long time. So love that she showed up.
Right on, Kristen. Sarah Rose showed up and says, sounds like one gorgeous mama. Now you're trying to pit us against each other. Melanie, you're my new favorite person. Sorry, Mark. Sorry, not sorry, because you were laughing at me. Let's see what's going on
with the tears.
Laughing with tears at me. Hey, Jorge did it. Everyone is welcome to fly to Puerto Rico. Let's do this, Puerto Rico. Oh, now it's getting weird. Melanie. Love. Jorge, I'm not putting you on anymore, but keep inviting us, man. Oh, then keep posting, Jorge. Easier isn't always fulfilling. So glad you had that aha moment and can share. And Sarah is saying, thanks, Jorge, for inviting us all. No problem, Sarah. We're building community up in here. And
we're going to have a group vacation. We're going to have a body image retreat in Puerto Rico, apparently.
Jorge, thank you for hosting the body image retreat. Do we have the date? For this? Because I'm going to be doing the dad bod workshop, embracing your dad bod. But let's talk a little bit more about. I want to go back to the bad body image days. Those of us who don't feel the freedom every day, right? And like we talked about, you have the ups, downs, and all arounds, right? Is body image good or bad triggered by something internal or external?
Well, it can be both. I mean, a lot of times it's the old stories. Sometimes it's an external thing that triggers the internal story. I mean, it can be both of those things. And which is why I say that it's not like we arrive at a certain point and the work is done. I mean, it is a practice. We have to remain vigilant because we still continue to exist in this culture. Listen, I love pop culture. I am so excited. Next Monday, Dancing with the Stars comes back on. I'm totally into that. I am, right? And here's the thing. I have the ability to consume mindfully. I have the ability to consume consciously. I also, with that, limit my consumption, knowing that the more I consume, the more prone I am to distortions in my reality. But I enjoy it, and because I'm still a member of the culture and I'm still interacting with media and I'm still interacting with others around me who maybe have not had a shift in their expectation of their own body or others, I have to remain vigilant. I continue to practice so that those things outside of myself don't, activate the old stories in me that tell me that I am less than worthy or less than valuable if I don't meet a particular standard. And so that is ongoing. It is a really ongoing thing.
I love what Kirsten's contributing with this as well. Triggers are always there, day to day, hour by hour. It's a work in progress. Very similar to what you're talking about. You don't get to an end point and it's done. The credits run and it's over. It's a practice.
But it doesn't happen. Yes, thank you, Kristen. And Vitas Bashkauskas in the first book in Yoga and Body Image, his piece is actually called Work in Progress. It's a really beautiful, vulnerable piece in which he shares, he's like, and as a male yoga teacher, by the way, he's like, I'm still battling my low self-esteem. I'm still battling these expectations, about what it means to look like a male yoga teacher with 0% body fat. And what I love is he says, I'm going to just read this if that's okay. He says, every moment of every day I have a choice. Sometimes I choose to be positive and accepting exactly who I am. Other times I fall into the uneasy place of lacking and wanting. Being on the path for almost 15 years doesn't make me any more enlightened today than someone who hasn't been practicing for that long. And then he goes on and he says, what I've learned from my time on this journey is that I have a choice. I can choose to be happy today if I want. Most days I do. Some days I don't. It's progress, not perfection. And with each conscious choice I make, I get better at it. So we bulk up and fortify our ability to have those triggers become, shorter, less intense, move on more quickly. When I have those moments, there's a very quick awareness, and then there's a moving on that happens. And most of the time when we come in to answer your question even more fully, those things are us going into the comparison trap. Because here's the thing, if we weren't comparing ourselves to something else, there's no fuel for a sense of lack. If we're not comparing ourselves to a ridiculous standard or to what other people look like who have a different genetic composition, right? Then we would never fall into this of like, this needs to be fixed. This is bad. This is a flaw. Then there are no flaws. It just is. And that's the truth.
If I didn't have a couple minutes to give you the golden mic, we would have shut the show down right there. But I do want to follow this up so we can talk a little bit more about let's go into the yoga and mindfulness practice as being one of the ways that we can become aware and move on. Talk to me. You have these narratives. You've been teaching this. You're looking at intersectionality. What is coming about from this?
In terms of the practice specifically, whether it's a physical asana practice, whether it's a seated meditation, there's different mindfulness tools. What they all share in common is what I said earlier about coming into the present moment. And when we can come into the present moment, as I was saying, we come into the truth of this is the only thing that's happening. This is how it is right now. This is where you are right now. And when you can accept this truth, this allows us to come into greater forgiveness. This we can be accepting. We can really begin to honor and listen to our bodies, its needs. It's like, how many times have we actually listened to, it's like, oh my God, you've been pushing me too hard. I'm exhausted. I'm hungry. I need more sleep. And we don't listen because we have this agenda that comes from the linear intellectual mind, and we keep going beyond our boundaries. When we can come into the stillness, we can listen. And, one of the beautiful things that my own yoga teacher would say is yoga allows us to be a better listener. And this translates to all areas of our life. You can't have a healthy relationship with anyone, let alone yourself, if you are choosing to not listen, if you are running over your own boundaries, not listening to your needs. So we come into stillness and we can be forgiving. We can come into moderation and gentleness. We can come into that place of, if nothing else, I accept this is the truth of this moment, and it's more than enough, because guess what? I am freaking alive. And that is a miracle that I am alive, and I can accept that.
Absolutely awesome. Again, if I wasn't handing you the mic, we might have needed to shut the show down right there. Melanie, we can keep in touch with you via the yogabodyimage.org site, right? And also the yogaisrisingbook.com site. It is in the show notes right now. But what can we expect if we go to those sites? Also, at the same time, I'm gonna put your link for a discovery session as
Great.
well. I'm gonna
And then there is also yogabodyimage.org. So at those two book sites, we have a list of all the contributors. We have some amazing contributors, just fantastic stories. And I even got Alanis Morissette in the first book. That was a goal. And it's freaking awesome. So I got to interview her at her house in Brentwood years back. A beautiful story. So we have all the contributors listed, their bios, their websites, the work that they're doing. We have a lot of great press for interviews and excerpts. And actually at yogarisingbook.com, at the beginning of this year, when the book came out, I hosted a virtual book tour. So we had the contributors go on Facebook, spend about 10 minutes, short videos talking about their work, their contribution. And so over at the Yoga Rising book page, you can go and you can actually get the whole book tour, and you can hear the contributors talking about their personal story, and hear more about their work. So that's there. There are also, as I said earlier, downloadable free book discussion guides, which really go into the details of how to facilitate and moderate a discussion in your community. Every single chapter and also every single section of the book has unique questions and prompts for inquiry that you can go into. So I'm a really big proponent of people taking this to the grassroots and bringing communities together to have these conversations. And then I'm all over social media. I'm all about it. Primarily, I'm a big fan of Instagram. So I'm at Melanie Klein. So you can find me there. Facebook, we have the Yoga and Body Image Coalition. Like, it's all over. It's hard not to find me. I'm around.
And everything is in the show notes. I just want to show you really quickly. Melanie, you have said it all. I've been anticipating this one. I held off on giving you a call because I wanted to meet you in person and just let it go organically. I hope we get to keep in touch because this was really, really fun. I hope you had a good time too.
Yeah. Can I just say, tell people how this actually came about to talk about the fun component? So my best friend, Marla Mattinson, who's an amazing coach for entrepreneurial couples, she was on a couple weeks ago, and I was about to go for my daily walk, and people follow me, they see my walkabout pictures, and this came through, and I was like, oh, what's Marla doing today? And I hopped in, I went, oh, okay, hold up. This guy and Marla, like this, and I was just like commenting. I was like, I'm jumping in, and after that, this is how we ended up hooking up, because I wanted totally in on the fun. I think, listen, Mark, the work that you're doing is so incredible. The fact that you provide this platform for people to talk about their work and create community is so dear to my heart. I find it to be an incredible gift to everyone. And your enthusiasm, the way I was promoting today, is freaking infectious. You are the magnet completely, like, we want to just get in there. And so I feel really super grateful, really, that I got to be here with you and to, have you pull out the stories and these components, because the interviewer is freaking everything, really. People get different parts of my story and the work that I do. And I just really have been lit up today sharing, with Beyond Resilience community, and the pre-show and everyone here and you. So thank you for everything you do. It's just wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for spending your time. It was very nice of you, but that was awesome. That was really awesome. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I don't know if you've seen the show endings, but
I have.
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to see what you do with this one. The Golden Mic is coming down in LA. It's coming down and it's falling right in front of your face, Melanie Klein. For 2 minutes, this Golden Mic translates into every language across the world, and every person is listening. And so when I hit the switch, Melanie, you're going to be live. All right? So Melanie, your Golden Mic is on.
I do have to ask this one question. Am I really going for 2 minutes?
You can go as long as you want or as short as you want.
Great. I did see this. I did not want to prepare anything because I want it to be organic as well. Mine's really short because I believe that's all that needs to be said. So in every language going out all over the world with this Golden Mic, I really just want to invite people to drop into their bodies either by closing their eyes, if that feels comfortable, or bringing their attention down to a point in front of them, and taking the time to come into stillness, taking the time to come into their body, their home, the vessel that allows them to experience life, the vessel that allows them to see, to breathe, to feel, to listen, and really begin to call in reverence for this body, to feel gratitude for the things that their body is able to do, not for what it looks like, not for perceived notions of what is wrong or needs to be fixed, but really orient to the deep gratitude for the functionality, for the fact that their heart is beating, that their brain is firing. They have the ability to hear our words or to at least read them on the screen. And allow the gratitude that comes into their brains and their hearts to actually begin to flow over into every corner of their body, to feel it in their bones, to feel the gratitude on a cellular level, to be it. And then to say, I am worthy, I am whole. And to know that they can repeat that mantra as many times as needed at any point in the day as a reminder of their divine truth, the miracle of being alive right now in this moment. And once that gratitude has permeated and they feel that reverence and they have soaked it up as juju for the day, maybe for the week, to slowly transition to being in the present moment with us. That's my golden mic, baby.
Y'all, I don't even know what happened. It cut out. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so it doesn't even show my camera on anymore.
Oh, you
Wow.
went in. You went in.
Yeah, I went deep. I got sucked into the computer, guys. I'm stuck. I'm stuck in here. So, what I'm going to do is thank you again, Melanie, for this. I want y'all to like Melanie. I want you to love Melanie. I want you to want some more of Melanie by sharing her out. Thank you for being here today. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And now that I'm coming back, I'm feeling the purple prana running through my fingers, baby. It's been episode 33 of the Golden Mic. It's your boy, Mark Cordone. I have one final question for you. If you are feeling good, if you are living in full purpose, the question I have for you is, what are you going to do to serve the greater good with that now? I am Mark Cordone. This is my sister, Melanie Klein. We're turning the Golden Mic off for the weekend and spending some time with family. I hope you do too. Have a good one. We'll see you on Monday. Peace out. Thank you so much, Melanie.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.